So to continue our conversation in our space to form and contour line unit, we're finally arriving at contour line. And in this section, we will be speaking about modified and eventually blind contour line drawing. As you know, when you start to draw, you are trying to break up space, and you do that with the use of construction lines. Eventually, you want to get more and more refined, and as we transition from those construction lines, we start to build in what we've been calling contour line. Contour line is a line which defines a form or an edge. It's an outline. Here you can see some contour line drawings. All these drawings probably started out with construction lines that were then refined until eventually they were erased and replaced with contour line. We introduced this word as well, modified contour line. And we talked about how modified contour line is how you're looking back and forth between your subject and the drawing, refining as you go, making modifications or small changes to get it just right. Now, it is that refinement process of modified contour line that really starts to focus in on the details of a subject. In this lesson, we're going to take a step back and revisit hands and faces, including facial features, to investigate the details that we often overlook when we're drawing. At the same time, we're going to talk about the danger of symbols. Oftentimes we forget to really observe our subject, and instead we produce something from memory. This drawing, the result of that experience, is usually polluted with a modified symbol of the subject instead of what it actually looks like. Take, for example, this symbol of a tree. That is very different from a tree that is more realistic or more true to life. So we're going to talk about that along the way in terms of hands and facial features. So let's go ahead and transition over to our document camera to talk about and investigate more details with contour line. So for this section of our lesson, you will need to get out your new packet called Contour Line Blind and Modified. That is included in your art kit. And you will need some kind of pen. I am using this green Crayola fine tip marker. You can use a ballpoint pen. I don't really care as long as you're able to make a highlighted line. Okay, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a minute. Here you're going to see your procedures, targeted vocabulary and concepts, as well as learning objectives. But we're going to go ahead and flip to the inside page, and we will be, again, investigating contour line, the details of contour line of hands, and then facial features. All right, but before we use our pen, we are going to use a pencil really quick because I want to talk about the symbols that you might see for a hand. Now, the biggest symbol that you might have, we just finished talking about construction lines, right? So we know not to do symbols, but the biggest symbol we might see for a hand might be something like this, right? Where we have fingers straight out, we have a thumb straight out. That really does look like a hand, but again, that is a symbol of a hand. What if I wanted to make my hand into a fist? Maybe I could do, right, I don't know, this. Does that look like a fist? Yeah, but it's a symbol of a fist, right? Perhaps you are thinking of when you were a little kid and you drew, a little person. Maybe you did this, right? Little spidery hands. That's always freaking me out. These are all symbols of hands. What I want to do in this time together is I want you to have an experience looking at these hands, doing different, just natural sort of poses. This one's a little bit more interesting. And looking at those contour lines. I'm going to be using this marker. I'm not sure if this marker is going to bleed, so I'm going to open this up for myself. That way I have more of a chance not to go through into the next piece of paper. So I want you to take your pen. Please get out your supplies right now. You can pause me and go get what you need, your pen and your packet, and then you could replay and do this with me. Again, you're doing this with me. You're going to take a picture of this sheet and the next sheet and submit that to Schoology when we're done. All right, so what are we doing here? We are highlighting all the contour lines in each image. And essentially highlighting, I'm just talking about tracing. Why are we spending time tracing? Well, again, I want to slow you down. I want you to observe because we're going to draw all the details of our hand later in the week. Let's start here. I'm going to be using this green marker and I'm going to highlight our contour line. I'm going to start with the thumb and I am just roughly going to highlight the contour lines of our thumb here. And I know yours printed a little bit darker than mine. I purposely printed a lighter one so I could show you additional detail and some of these shadows that you might have. I have our thumb, I have these lines. For inside, look at curvy bottoms, just like we talked about. And where it ends, I'm gonna let it end, right? So I'm going to go around all of my fingers. And I don't want to forget any of my additional contour lines. My contour lines aren't just the outlines of each thing. Here is a contour line for our thumbnail, and it's hard to see, but you have a little bit of a contour line for each of those fingers as well. In addition, a couple lines in there and the knuckle. Okay, again, you may not see all of these lines. What I'm going to look for when I go to grade you on this is that you're taking notes with me, you're observing these hands. If I could select the values here and click delete, I should be able to see all the detail of the hand that's still there. Let's jump over here to this hand that is pointing straight at the camera, right? It's like yelling at you or pointing and saying, we want you. We're gonna go ahead again and highlight our contour lines. So I see a line here, this weird bumpy line happening for our knuckles. And then I see it coming around. I see this Y. Right, look, I'm slowing you down. Look at how slowly I'm going around and highlighting exactly what I see. Sometimes it's a little bit strange and I have to spend a little bit more time looking. I see some lines for my knuckles there. Get my fingernail in here first, something like that. Don't worry if you make a mistake, it's not perfect. I know I told you to use a pen. Just draw the line that you meant to draw. I've got wrinkles on the inside, and then here's the best part. This is what I wanted you to see. What do you see? Well, we have this line, and do you see it sort of opens up like that? Maybe the fingernail is right here, right? And maybe that line. That's called foreshortening. We're really just seeing the fingertip there, right? Okay, let's go down here to this peace sign. This one's feeling a little bit easy. We're going to go all the way around all of this. I'm going to start over here. And I'm going to actually come in and do the details right away of what I see of these fingers. See, I made a mistake, that's okay. Just do the line in which you want it. Get that fingernail. If you want to get some of these lines, you can, whatever you're seeing. Again, the contour line is not just the outline, it's the outline of everything. Every line you see is an edge, it's a contour line. Let's go ahead and jump into this one. I am going to start here. You see that I like to hug each subject, like one finger at a time, right? That's just because I don't want to forget. If I do part of it and then I go to a different part, I could forget something, forget a detail. And all these lines matter. You're seeing a line because you're seeing a change in value. And we're going to talk about value a little bit later in our course. And I know inside the hand it's really, really, really dark. I'm just going to grab some of those lines for you so you know what's going on in there. Okay, so we just slowed down and we really highlighted all the contour lines that we see. All right, so take a picture of that one and you can submit that to Schoology. You're going to submit twice in one assignment, this one here. And we're about to do this one, but again, we're going to flip this page. If I went too fast for you, please pause me, because here I'm going to look for you to take these notes with me. We're going to talk about, I'm going to use my 4B pencil so it's a little bit brighter. We're going to talk about how symbols are stylized. So before we talk about these facial features and really take a closer look, we're going to talk about eyes, heads first, eyes, nose, mouth, right? We're going to talk about what the symbols that we have for them are before we look at this, before we highlight. That way, when you're highlighting, you understand why, right? So again, we're going to talk about symbols and how they are stylized and how we then therefore want to move into something called realism eventually. So the first thing I wanted to call to your attention, I know that we've spoken about this before. We did a whole sheet on the proportions of the face, right? But I want to go over just a couple heads shape because we're going to use one stylized shape to help us. So what is the most basic form of a head that we draw as a child? Well, that's going to be a circle. I want you to draw this with me on the back of this hand sheet. We have a circle. Maybe we want that to be more of an oval. That's a really tall oval. Maybe we do that. Maybe we think of a square head, right? Or a triangular head. What about one of my favorite cartoons from the 90s, our football head? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to brush up on your 90s cartoons. This is going to be much more realistic. We talked about how we have that rounded top, right? And then we have sort of like this egg shape for our chin, but that's still stylized, meaning it has a style, right? A cartoon style instead of being realistic. We talked about how that realism happens by building in that skull. The more you look, the more you're going to see. Our focus right now is going to be on features. So let's start with the eyes. The eyes. I'm going to use the circle for the head, and I'm going to draw circles all the way across. And what is the most basic way to show an eye? Probably some dots, maybe some circles. That's spookier. Maybe some circles with dots. Maybe like this, an emoji eyes. Maybe even eyes like this. We can start to get fancier. Right, maybe we can add some more detail. Maybe we do ovals. That's better than a circle, isn't it? Right? What about if we talk more detail? Maybe a lot of people want to do this for an eye, right? Maybe they want to put the pupil in there. Maybe they want to pupils. This one, the iris here, right? That's more realistic, isn't it? Eyelashes, that's more realistic than that. But is that really realistic? No, it's still a symbol for an eye. It's still stylized. Let's turn this over and let's look at what a real eye looks like. Flip this over, grab your pen. Look at those. We have two eyes. We have one straight on and we have one from the side. Let's talk through these curves. The first thing I want you to get is this inside line right here, right in the water line. I want you to go over here to the tear duct. Do you see that? And then I want you to follow the eyelashes up and over this way. That was pretty close to this. I see where they're coming from with this symbol, but look at this shape, right? If without this tear duct, it's not going to be as pointy on that end, and it really comes up, doesn't it? I want you to notice the iris, that's the colored part of the eye, coming in and down here. It's cut off. Do you see that? It's cut off. If we draw the entire thing, it looks really surprised. Details. I want you to highlight all the details of these contour lines, right? Here's our pupil right in the middle. And then what is this here? Do you see that? That is the reflection on the eye. And you see those little black lines? That's the reflection of the eyelashes in the eye. It's a highlight from like a window. We also have this line for this photo, which is like the crease of the eye. And then we have the eyelashes. I want you to notice how way over here there's more on top, thicker. Eyelashes are meant to keep dirt out of your eye, so it makes sense they would be on top. And look at that curve. Do just a few of them. Don't do all of them. Do just a few. And then down here, grab a few for yourself. Okay, that curves this way towards the center. It's gonna start to poke straight up. And then over here, it looks like it's falling down. That's what I'm looking for that eye. That is very different if I open this up than this stylized version. Let's look about how it changes when we look at the side of the eye. The first thing I want you to do is the same thing we started with, the interior waterline. So that comes up this way. And then look, it's going to curve sort of around. Your eyelid has a thickness to it. This is getting cut off. Why is it getting cut off? From the side of the nose. And then we have this coming in. There's two lines, not the lash line, the water line. And then we have the lash line in here. You could mark that over here as well, the lash line. Your eyelid has a thickness, top and bottom. Look at the side of the eye, it's curved. Do you see that? Your eyeball is round. And this was perfectly round, although cut off at the top. Now the shape is going to be an oval, but it's still cut off. Our pupil will also be an oval. And then look at this highlight. Whoa, that's a full window. You can see the reflection. Next, I want you to grab in the eyelid and the side of the face. You're going to see it here and here. We have a couple of wrinkles right underneath the eye. And then we have these eyelashes. Just a few. Just grab a couple on the bottom to show me that you understand the direction in which they are going. Again, what are we focusing on right now? We're trying to get to realism. We always get caught up in these symbols in a stylized manner. We want to live here because it's comfortable, because we know this is like, everyone will know it's an eye, but that's not always what an eye looks like. There's details that you're probably overlooking that are going to be really important. Let's move on to the nose. I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to do some circles all the way down. And I'm going to add some dots for our eyes. And what's the most basic form of a nose? Maybe that, right? That's how I like to draw noses when I was a kid. Let's get fancier, right? Let's see what other kind of noses we can discover. Maybe we have a line coming down for the bridge of the nose. Maybe we have like a round little line. Maybe we just want to see the nose like that or like that. Maybe we want to get fancy and we can connect. We have like this nose here, a little bit of a curve, right? Sort of combining. But if we wanted to get fancy, we can like add it to the eyebrow. That was my second favorite. I remember the day I learned that. I was like, wow, that is fancy. Maybe we're Squidward and we've got a long nose. Maybe let's do this one. my favorite villain, Voldemort nose, right? You can think of like a pig nose, right? But again, these are all symbols of noses. So let's go look at the real thing. Grab your marker, your pen. Here we have a basic nose, not too big, not too small, not too anything in particular, right? We have this curve coming down, and then over here we have a nose from the side, like we have an eye from the side, and it's got a nose ring, which is pretty cool. So let's look at this shape first. This one we're sort of looking up a little bit. Here we're sort of straight on. I want you to notice the shape of the nostrils. Shape of the nostrils is like a teardrop shape pointing in that is then connected by a line that will dip into like a U. And depending on how pointy or how broad your nose is, that dip, that U can be more or less shallow. Your nose changes with your age, like we mentioned before. So little babies have different kinds of noses than we do as we grow up. I also want to point out that you have a line that's going to be for the nostril over here, and it's going to come down and underneath the nose on either side, the nostril, excuse me, on either side, and that's it. That is a nose. We do not have a line coming up. We do have a highlight. Do you see it? We do have a highlight and we have some shadow, but it's not strong enough to have lines coming up unless it is seen from the side, like in here. Okay, and that is a really hard thing to break out of, because if I jump back over to our symbols, you can see we always are talking about that bridge of the nose because we're used to feeling it on our face, right? We can see it from the side profile, but straight on, all we see are nostrils, the dip between, and the side of the nostrils. Let's take a look at this image. I'm going to grab in the side of this person's face, right? And maybe like the shirt. I feel like that's going there. We're going to save the lips because we're going to talk about mouths in just a second. We have 3 to work on, but we're going to do this nose here. Here you can see the shape of this nostril there, the shape of this nostril coming this way. This nostril looks bigger to us because we're looking from this angle. This side of the face is turned a little bit away from us. And here you can see this line coming down like that, and this line coming down like that. That is it. You would perhaps see more of a line here. Really, it's the highlight and the shadows, the lowlights that are happening. We don't really see that dip line underneath because of the angle at which we're looking, but you can see I sort of flattened it there. This nose also has a nose ring, and I want you to see the curve on either side of that ring. That will make it look 3-dimensional. All right, let's talk about mouths. I'm going to flip back over here. If I'm going too fast for you, please pause the video. Let's talk about a mouth. I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces. I'm going to give them all the same eyes and nose, like as basic as it gets, because we're talking about the mouth. The most common form of creating a mouth is to do a curve pointing up for a smile. If you wanted to get fancy, you could add some ends of the mouth there. Perhaps you can even do this, and it looks like the person's mouth is open. If you wanted to, you can open that mouth up, and perhaps you wanted to add some details inside. Maybe you want to make yours have some fancy lips. We can also do something like this, right? Or if you want to add lips, you can do this. Here's a little trick for some lips, right? Maybe you want to be more expressive with that mouth. Let's talk about lips a little bit more. We can pull this up. What I just drew is a line and sort of like a heart shape and then like a curve underneath. If I exaggerate that a little bit more, I can do that curve shape, and I can do like this. That feels a little bit more realistic, right? I'm going to exaggerate that even more. Well, I'll give you a treat. Nah, I'll do this. Ready? That's our middle of our mouth. We're going to dip this. Instead of it being so arched, we can dip that and then curve it this way. Right? And that is called a Cupid's bow. Right there, that little dip. But our lips don't meet in a perfect straight line. I don't know if you know that or not, but we're about to find out. Again, these are all symbols, and let's go see what's really happening. We're gonna start here with this mouth that's closed and straight on. Then we'll do the mouth from the side, and then we'll do the mouth from the side with some teeth. Oh man. First thing I want you to notice, I'm gonna turn my paper to the side. I want you to notice how the inside line of the mouth is curved and bumpy. I also want to point out shading. I know we're not talking about value and shading just yet, but look at the top lip versus the bottom lip. Which one is darker in value? The top, because it is coming down from an angle. The light's hitting here, it's hitting right there, and this is all cast in shadow. So we'll talk about that more when we start to draw portraits. I want you to grab in the rough line work. I know it sort of disappears off to the sides, but I'm looking for those 3 lines. Let's go look over here. This person has more of a pronounced Cupid's bow. I like that. It's very nice. Comes in this way and out there. And it looks like this mouth is shorter, right? This is sort of longer. This is a little bit shorter. And then we have that bump in the middle. And then this comes down pretty dramatically at first. It evens out. And then look at this curve here, because we're seeing it from the side. Do you see that? We're seeing that from the side. Let's do the hardest one down here. Let's get this top edge. I know it's hard to see. Just try and grab that top edge. It's going to pull down close to the teeth. This side is also going to curve in like it did up top. Down here, it's going to curve away. I want you to get the inside line and how it bumps around a little bit. I want you to get the inside line here of where the lip meets the teeth up top, the curve of the tongue. And then let's talk teeth. Do you see this shape? These triangles that get smaller and differently shaped off the edge. Do you see the line between the teeth? It's very faint on the bottom of each tooth. And look at this one. You see this part of the tooth, the front, and the back of the molar sticking out there. And right there we've got another contour line for the side of the face. Okay, so in this conversation we just had, if I open this up, I want you to realize and understand that we talked first about symbols and how we have stylized facial features, right? Then we looked at each one, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and how they have interesting details that you might not have observed. For instance, we can see, let's start with the eye, we can see that we have a different shape. It's similar to our stylized understanding of an eye, but it is more refined. We also have details like the pupil and the iris and the highlight and the lashes and how they move, how they curve away. From the side, we've noticed that we have like the eyeball popping out a little bit, that curve, because we're seeing the eye from the side. For our nose, we discussed how we can always sort of want to draw a line coming down the middle of the face, but we don't have that. It's really about the details of the nostrils. We also looked at this shape of the nostril and how it's like a teardrop. We know our nostril is round. We know this because we can stick our finger up it, right? And we see it from totally below. It is pretty round, and that's where this sort of thing is coming from, right? But when we see it from the side, we're getting this teardrop shape, no matter what kind of nose you have. For our mouths down here, we talked about how it's more than just a line, and the line between, let me see if I can do this. The line between our lips is not flat. We always draw it flat, or we think of our lip as being flat in different ways, or just a curve. It's bumpy, right? We looked at the lips from the side and how they come together in a sort of curve here. We looked at the details of teeth. So I hope this experience was eye-opening for you. I'm gonna have you photograph this page, your contour line, and this page of your highlights. I know this is super basic, right? We just sort of like trace these images, but the larger context is that you're slowing down and you're observing detail. So again, sign this page for yourself, photograph 1, photograph 2 in the submission on Schoology. All right, until next time.